So your illustration regarding aliens coming down and reading the Bible and taking what it plainly says, when they also walk away as young Earth creationists, aren't you old Earth?
It depends on what the word day means, right? That's the question. It also depends on if they read it closely enough, because when people say, how old is the universe? I say, look, I'm absolutely convinced the universe is at least 60 years old. Okay. Look, I don't care how old it is. I don't care if it's old or young, because you need a creator, whether you go back thousands of years or billions of years, right?
Uh-huh.
But if you read the Bible closely, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? It's the first verse of the Bible.
Yeah.
And when does it say God created the heavens and the earth? It says in the beginning. Does it say when? No. You say, what about the days? Well, the days don't begin until verse 3. If you want to take a hyper literal interpretation of Genesis 1, the universe is already created before the days begin, right? Now, maybe that's a summary statement of what's going to follow in the next 6 days. Yeah, it might be. Or maybe God's saying, all right, I created the heavens and the earth. Let me tell you how I did it, right? And the word day has several different meanings depending upon the context. It can mean 24 hours, certainly. It can mean 12 hours, right? He called the...
Hold on. Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
Was the universe created in 6 literal days?
Well, that's what I'm
getting. There was evening and there was morning, the first day. I knew you were getting there, so I wanted to give this
right now.
Highlight. Exactly.
Certainly, that's totally a valid interpretation of Genesis 1, that it was created in 6 literal days. But even if it was created in 6 literal days, if you add up the genealogies, you're not necessarily getting back to 4004 BC. Why? Because we know there are gaps in the genealogies, right? In fact, the word day could mean an era. Like if I were to say that Peyton Manning was a good quarterback in his day, you wouldn't think I would say, well, Peyton's only good for 24 hours, right? Also, the word day in the seventh day means more than 24 hours. Why? Because we're still in the seventh day. We're still in the rest right now. Well, if the 7 days, the seventh day is longer, maybe the other days are longer. Also, if you look at Genesis 2:4, where it's kind of a summary statement of the entire creation. You know, some people say, well, there are two creation stories. There's one in Genesis 1 and then in Genesis 2. Well, it says in the day the Lord God created. That word day in Genesis 2:4 in the NASB, a very literal translation. That word day, the same word in Hebrew, yom, means the entire 6-day creation period.
Mm-hmm.
So, look,
well,
I think
could mean, right? Is that
it does mean the entire 6-day creation period there.
Okay.
Right. And if you look at Genesis 1 is a poetic way of telling an historical truth. If I were to give you a poem of the Civil War, you would get some good historical truths out of it, but you wouldn't stretch every word to its literal extent, right? You go, hey, I got, this is a poem here. Look, it starts with the same phrase, and God said, right? It ends with the same phrase, and God saw it was good, right? It's got 3 days of creating, then 3 days of filling. Day 1 and day 4 are congruent. Day 2 and day 5, day 3 and day 6, right? God is telling the ancient Israelites a historical truth in a poetic way. And I think if you really look at this, by the way, the creation account is a polemic against the Egyptian creation account. Look, these people just came out of Egypt. They're not walking through the desert going, I wonder how old this place is, right? But that's not their question, okay? They want to know, is Yahweh the true God, or are the Egyptian gods the true gods? And if you look at the Egyptian creation story, the Egyptian creation story says somehow these gods just pre-existed, but they're inside the universe and they bring order to chaos. Yahweh says, no, I'm outside the universe. I created everything out of nothing, and I bring order to chaos just by speaking. I don't have to fight. I don't have to do any of that. So that's what I think the creation story is actually about.
So you said something interesting. You said that we're still in the day of rest.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
According to
What is
Hebrews
that?
4. Well,
Does that
God
mean
is no longer
not working?
creating. God is no longer creating in the sense he was when he created the heavens and the earth. Also, going back to the real point of this question, Genesis 1, as I mentioned, is a poetic way of telling an historical truth. The proscriptions against homosexuality are not poetry, right? They are straightforward law.
Yeah.
So you might have more ambiguity in a poetic passage than you would when he says, to lie with another man is an abomination, or these are indecent acts. Again, the behavior, not the identity. So they're two different types of passages.
But I think that also the intent of this question was if an alien just read it black and white.
Right. Well, if an alien understood different genres is what I mean, right? An alien is not going to think, well, an alien could think if he doesn't know different genres that God has eyes, that God has feathers, that God has wings, right? We know those are metaphors to express a truth in a more robust way than just saying, well, that God sees all things, or that God can be anywhere at any time, or using metaphors is a more expressive way of trying to get your point across. So if you don't know metaphors, you might think God is a being with feathers and eyes and ears, and